How's it going, everybody, and welcome back to the Real FI Podcast. I'm your host, Patrick McGrath, with my co-host, James Rippion. How's it going today, James?
It's going well, man. For those who are tuning in, today is our first recording in the new year, so it's 2023. Patrick and I were excited to kick the year off right, do a lot of exciting things in real estate, business, and everything else, take this podcast to new levels. So starting off the year, we've got our new guest, Pete Reese. Pete, I think, is going to be able to share a lot of cool insight into his business, what he's doing and growing. So we're really excited to talk to him. And I guess we'll just open it up by introducing Pete. So Pete, how's it going, man?
I'm doing great. Well, thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. So why don't we just get started? Let's jump into the meat of this. Tell us about your business, what you got going on, and what you do.
Yeah, sure. I'd be happy to. What I do is pretty simple business model, but it's, I guess you could say, not conventional. A lot of other investors maybe are thinking about, what I do is flip land, and I buy properties off market and then sell them on market. Sometimes we do some things to the properties in the meantime, while we own the properties, but we pretty much buy them off market. Sometimes do a little improvements and then sell them on the market with the real estate broker. And we're generating all of our business with direct mail. So we send out actual offer letters to property owners, and then they respond in some way. Sometimes the response is, take me off your list. You offer me too low of a price, that type of thing. Sometimes they're interested. Sometimes they want to see if we will negotiate our offer price. And basically when they call, we kind of open up a conversation and see if we can put a deal together, if it's a property we want to buy. And then on the, the resale side of things, after we purchase the property, we'll then just, sometimes we'll get a survey done or a perk test or clearing some paths in the property, something like that, to make it a little more marketable, and then we'll resell it right away. And we market it at a price that's pretty aggressive. So these end up being short-term holds. On average, our hold times are about 60 days.
That's awesome. So, this is really interesting to me because I first got into real estate with the idea of doing land sales and land flipping. So that's the first time I ever did direct mail. Got a lot of leads, didn't close on a single deal, didn't follow through. And that was my first lesson in business, and first lesson in following through and taking action. And that brings me up to today, where I actually got this client who's doing a similar thing to you. And it's very impressive, the business model, and it works. When he contacted me, wanting to use me as his listing broker to sell these parcels, I thought it was crazy. But he's making a fantastic margin on this business, as I'm sure you are. We'll get into your numbers. But, one question I did have is your offer letter. It sounds like you're going, shooting right out of the gate, giving numbers to these prospective sellers. How are you coming up with that initial offer number to present to the seller?
It's extremely complex. No, it's actually not. Basically, we're looking at Zillow, and I'm just kind of doing a search in Zillow and trying to estimate an average price per acre in that particular area. Say, for instance, we generally do it by county. So we take a particular county, we look on Zillow, past 12 months, what properties have sold. Say, for instance, we're doing a search of 10 acres or more, and I see that on average, kind of a retail value might be 10,000 an acre. And then we just back off a percentage of that, and that's how we generate our offer prices. And it's basically just a formula. We create the big spreadsheet list, and it's based off of what acreage they have. So it's 10 acres, and then we're offering, say, 3,000 an acre. Then the offer price that goes on their letter is 3,000. I mean 30,000. So, and then, they'll respond and sometimes, and we'll see if we can put a deal together. Well, when they respond, we basically look at the property really closely, do some initial research on it, and figure out, were we too high, were we too low, or were we right where we needed to be. But the offer letters are based off of averages. So
That's really interesting. So you're not, like you said, you're doing possible small improvements to the property. You're not looking at, subdividing and selling it to a builder or anything like that. You're just trying to flip it for, let's say sell them, you get it for 3,000, sell it for 4,000, or 5,000 or whatever you think you kind of can to move it quick is kind of the plan.
Yeah, exactly. And kind of what we try to do on all of our deals is we try to double investment. And then,
Okay.
being short-term hold 60 days, that starts to really accelerate pretty quickly, the money that we invest. And we actually close on the properties, we actually buy them, but then we try to double our money. And sometimes it doesn't quite work. Sometimes we're going to be a little lower than a double. Sometimes we'll be higher, but on average, it really is about a double, if we combine kind of all of our properties together. So that's where we average it and where we end up.
So let me ask you this, because I've got a little bit of experience in the land flipping, just from the agent side of things. And the gentleman I work with, he's moving real quick. He's buying a lot of properties and going pretty fast, but he's remote. Like, so he's not in the market where he's buying all the land. And I can think of maybe one or two parcels that when I finally got there in person to check it out after he bought it, complete dogs. Like the grade is like super steep, like it's super wet. There's no real good access. So what kind of things are you doing to avoid, issues like that for some of the properties? Like, how are you going through your due diligence process? Well, first of all, I guess I'd ask this: are you buying property like nearby, or are you buying things that are, across the country?
I'm buying properties thousands of miles away, and personally, I never go see them. But we do. We have a full due diligence process that we go through, and this has really evolved over time as we bought more and more properties and everything. But pretty much what we do is, well, we do our initial due diligence before we actually get under contract with a property owner. These are, initial checks, kind of like we use a software called MapRight. And MapRight, you can pull up a ton of information about a property before, just right from your computer screen. So we could tell the contours, we could tell the multiple different satellite images. We could see the road frontage and what the access is like. We can see, if it's been clear cut of trees, or we could see wetlands, FEMA flood zone, all these kinds of things we could do from kind of that initial evaluation. So we can really find out 90% of what a property is like just from that. But after we get under contract, we also, every single property, we send out a photographer that will do a site inspection and also drone photos as part of the package that they do for us. And, they walk the property, they write up a little report about the property. And, we just interview them and say, hey, what was this property like? Was it a good property? Was it a crappy property? So we do, flesh out some of the problem type things there. We also really are big on working with local agents and brokers. And that's kind of a big part of our process. I know a lot of land investors don't do. Like, we will work hard to find really good agents and brokers in a particular area. So that way we can kind of incorporate them into our due diligence process. We're asking them like, hey, what do you think about this property? What should we be looking out for? We send them all of our due diligence to review, kind of highlight anything that we maybe are concerned about. And then, as if they help us reviewing that property, on the buy side, then we give them the listing. So then they resell it for us. And generally we're paying a, 10% commission on the resale side of things as well, because we want to make it worthwhile for agent partners. And we want things to be kind of long-term, because for us, when we find a great agent to work with, it's kind of like gold, because they, it's a give take relationship. They get more listings, and they obviously really help us on the buy side as well. So it's a good win-win situation when we find really good agents to work with.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, they're like your boots on the ground, and they're
yeah,
your local
definitely.
experts, like um that makes total sense, because like you said, you're doing deals thousands of miles away, hundreds, plus miles away. So to have that local agent that knows the area, that knows what's selling, that knows the property, can drive by there for you, help you out with the listing, that may know people in the area that are looking for stuff like that, like 1,000%. So I love that you're, and paying a premium for that person's time and knowledge that is helping you out. You see the value in that. There's other people, like you said, that don't focus on those relationships, and that extra, 4 to 5% in their pocket means more than that long-term relationship where, I I think you're doing it the right way as a long-term, business strategy. So that's
Yeah.
great. Now, where are you where are you posting these things at? Is this just going up on Zillow? Is this going up on like a Land Watch website
Oh,
or
when we
anything?
resell them? Yes.
Yeah.
So everything gets listed with a broker unless I don't have someone for that area. So it gets put in the MLS. They generally are working with land.com sites, Landwatch, something like that. We'll also do a listing on Facebook Marketplace. Facebook Marketplace used to be a lot better. It's kind of gone off the deep end and we don't get many leads from it. So, but we still do post on there. We used to post on Craigslist as well, but most areas you just don't get any leads with that. But majority of the deals really come from MLS type stuff, which then just gets filtered to Zillow and Redfin and all those places. But and then the land.com sites. And then also we also get a fair amount of deals from the neighbors, when they see something listed. And also the agents that we work with typically have a pretty robust buyer list. So, hey, if you ever get a lot in this area, that type of thing. And then, they match them up that way. So
That's pretty interesting, and I think that's kind of funny too. Like, especially when you're talking about these large lots, like the neighbor, they're like, "Hey, I'm going to buy this lot because I don't want anybody building a place, building something next to me. They like their peace and quiet. They want to keep it that way." So,
yeah, a lot of our properties end up selling to neighbors. It's kind of cool. Yeah, like they, and we've had numerous situations where they're like, oh, I've been trying to get hold of the owner that owned this property for years and we haven't been able to get hold of them. We end up buying the property directly from that person and then resell it to the neighbor. But, so I'm sure they're griping a little bit, but along the way, but they are still interested in buying the property for sure.
Yeah, I've seen
that's
that
funny.
a couple times as well. Have neighbors reaching out to me being like, trying to buy it for, a lot cheaper price too. And,
Yeah.
because it sounds like you're doing a double close, if you're not wholesaling. So you're buying it, getting title, marketing it, and then reselling again. Do you ever
Mhm.
face pushback from the next buyer on your most recent sales price? When they're looking to buy it from you, because that's all going to be public data, and they're going to know you bought the $24,000 lot for $12,000. Do
Right.
you find that you're getting pushback on the price at all?
I do have that, and every once in a while, an agent will mention that to me that they get pushback on that, but they all kind of know how to explain it to the buyers that like, hey, they bought it off market. It was a cash deal, but quick close type situation. And we're reselling it for slightly below market value. And we've got other interested people. So if you're interested, great. If not, that's great, too. So there is pushback sometimes, I think, and maybe they filter a lot of it. So I don't even get to hear about that. But it hasn't been a big problem. I mean, we've still been able to sell the properties and hasn't been any sort of issues that way. Sometimes if we get a lower offer and it just doesn't make sense, then we'll just counter back for what it would take for it to make sense for us. And either they do it or they don't.
So what's your
Exactly.
average kind of purchase price, your acquisition price for a parcel of land? Like what are you expending when you're purchasing these properties outright?
Yeah, most of them right now are in the 30 to I'd say $150,000 price range. So these are not like huge dollar properties or anything, but I used to do even lower dollar properties than that. Like I've purchased properties for $5, $6, $7,000, and some of those are great. Like you can sometimes buy a property for 5,000 and sell for 25,000. Like spreads like that, which are really pretty good. 5 times in your money in a couple months, something like that. But it's really hard to really get the big numbers when you're doing those little properties like that. So I found the best range really for right now is that 30 to maybe 150 range is kind of the sweet spot, I'd say.
And how many of these deals are you doing each month?
It averages, last year we sold 69 properties. So that was actually our only full year in the business. We resold our first property in March of 2021. So not even 2 years ago now. And then that first year we did 1.2 and some 1.25 or so in revenue and about 50% gross profit margin. And that was, I think, 32 properties that first year. And then 2022, which we just wrapped up, Did did about 3.5 million in revenue. Again, at about 50% gross profit. We did 69 properties this past year. So
That's amazing.
looking to do over 10 million in next year. I really think I can get there. But
That's amazing. And how many people are we talking? Like, what's your overhead on all of this?
yeah, I've built out a pretty decent sized team now. So I've got a lead manager, and he also kind of coordinates some of the due diligence stuff. I've got an acquisition manager that basically has all the conversations with the property owners by phone, by text, by email, everything until the point of where the contract, where it gets under contract. Then I also have a property analyst, and his job is to just take a look at all these properties that are coming in and evaluate them. What are they worth? What things should we be concerned with? After we get the due diligence back, he reviews that thoroughly. After he gets title work back, he also reviews that thoroughly. And then I've got a transaction manager that handles all the purchase transactions and then all the resale transactions as well, and keeps all the paperwork moving like it should. So,
Man, that's amazing for, a 2-year-old business, to kind of have all your systems in place, be looking at over $1.5 million in gross revenue. That's fantastic. So let's kind of rewind a little bit and give our listeners kind of why you even got into this kind of land flipping business. Like, what were you doing before, and like what brought you into, this real estate investing strategy specifically?
yeah, most recently in about 2017, since about 2017 to 2020, I was running a online education business with my wife about blogging and travel blogging training for those. So we had our own courses that we developed, and my wife has been a blogger for a long time, and we used to do lots of traveling as a family. I've got a family of 5, so we used to travel about 150 days a year as a whole family together to all these different places all over the world, really. So that was really cool, and that was a great life experience and everything. But I knew I wanted to get kind of back into the real estate game, because I've been a broker myself in California here since 2006. I used to flip houses at the beginning. That's how I decided to get my broker license. Market crashed, and then I got into selling bank-owned properties, REO. I was a REO listing broker for a number of years after the market crashed. So went down that whole rabbit hole and did that for a long time, and then started working with investors again. And then 2017 started this other business with my wife about the blogger education business. Did that for quite some time, but it just kind of like I got to the point where I was like, I got to get back into real estate. And I was kind of looking at different things to do. I didn't really want to get back into house flipping again, because I don't know, I just didn't enjoy the renovation side of things. It's great and it's satisfying when it's all done, but it's a little frustrating to get through that process. And I thought there was maybe some more scalable things out there, some more scalable business models. Just doing a lot of research, and I stumbled upon land flipping that people were doing. Kind of read some stuff, people talking about, hey, I bought this property for 10,000, and I sold for 30,000, and it didn't do anything to the property. And so I would read stuff like that and think, oh, that's pretty cool. I think I could do that myself. I ended up buying a training course and just kind of dove really into it, learned how to evaluate properties and how the business model worked, like how to send out the mail, how to kind of do all that stuff. And I just dove all in on it and just started doing some deals, and they started working out, thankfully, and just tried to expand from there.
That's incredible. Only 2 years too. It's incredible you've been able to build this business up to, you said, $3.5 million in revenue, 69 transactions. That's so quick. What do you think you would attribute to that growth to get to that amount of revenue so quickly?
I think I just think big. I like to think big. And, even for my first mailer that I send out, and, seeing other people, they're like, oh, I'm sending out 1,000 pieces of mail and everything. And that's great. But I just like to go bigger. So I did, my first mailer was 10,000 pieces of mail. I don't know. And that's really the big part about it, is sending out a lot of mail and sending it out consistently. So you have to invest in that, and you got to realize that the money is not going to come back to you right away. It sometimes takes, a number of months in order to see a return on that investment. But so right now I'm sending out 50,000 letters a month. So that costs me $25,000 a month. But, it's kind of like built up to that over time. And yeah, just start snowballing. Like at this point, I kind of track my portfolio value of the properties I already own that are either on the market to sell or under contract to be resold, like in escrow. And right now we're at 2.7 million in the value of the properties I own. And those are all like free and clear that I bought with cash. So those, like the inventory number, like with this business, is really interesting. It really starts to accelerate and kind of snowball really quickly. And I'm on track to have first $1 million month actually in January here. So if everything closes the way it should, which I hope.
That's incredible. So do you
Fingers
have any partners that you've been working with, or are you entirely self-funded?
Yeah, self-funded completely. I did partner on 2 deals in the past, and those were larger properties. One of them in particular was a 650 acre property, and it was a purchase price of 315,000. And in that situation, there are partners in the land business that if you don't have the resources to put your own money to purchase the deal, these money partners will basically step up, and if it's a deal, they'll be more than willing to partner with you on it. And basically that means they'll put the money towards the transaction, and then you split the profits. So you bring the deal, they bring the money. When it sells, you split the profits. So on that particular one, that one for 315,000 that we bought, we ended up selling it for 595. We also invested a little bit into clearing some paths in that property. It was a 650 acre property. The place was huge. And so it cost us about 14 grand, I think, to cut some paths into the property to kind of enhance the marketability of it. And then after all was said and done, we each ended up with, I don't know, 108,000 or something like that. And for not putting any money in the deal, I did bring the deal, but for not having to put 315,000 out to buy it, it was still a good situation for me, and a good situation for the money partner too. So
That's not a bad return on no money at all.
Yeah.
Just your time. So
Yeah.
that's fantastic. So, everybody always asks, like, what is this letter saying? Are you just like, hey, I buy land and I like to buy yours for $15,000, or do you send them to your website? Is it a phone number? Like, break that down for us a little bit.
Yeah. So it's a 2-page letter, and it's sent by standard mail. So it's like one of those standard like white envelopes, and it's got those windows on it, so there's a window for the return address and a window for the actual seller property owner's address. So it looks kind of official. It doesn't look like junk mail or anything like that. It looks like it could be, maybe something for their credit card company or something like that. But anyhow, so the letter is a 2-page deal. First page is kind of explaining why we're contacting them, who we are, what we do, and what we could offer them. Second page is the actual purchase agreement. It's a 1-page purchase agreement, very simple. It just shows their property information, like the parcel number, the acreage, and basic terms of the agreement, the price that we're offering, and has spaces for them to sign it. So sometimes people will sign it and then they'll mail it back. Sometimes they'll sign it and email it back or text it back. And then there's also, calls to action on there to give us a call, or, you can, if you want to mail us back, you can mail it here, or you could text us. We give all those options. And then also we provide our website with a QR code and stuff as well. But most of the people, they actually end up calling. And we have a call service that we use that's on, basically 24 hours a day. And what they do is they kind of filter through the calls and see if it's someone serious and interested, or if they're just angry and they want to be taken off the list, something like that. They filter those ones out. If it is someone that's serious and ready to go, and it's during business hours, then they will attempt to transfer the call to my acquisition manager to, discuss, go through some basic questions on the property. Generally, is the first phone call.
I think
So,
that's really cool. What I like about what you have set up now is you're not getting your feelings hurt when people call all angry and upset because they're calling someone else. So
right.
that's a good buffer between you and that anger. Something that I wanted to point out that might have been lost on some of our listeners is the simplicity of your cover letter and your contract. When you're submitting a contract, your NAR sponsored form vacant land contract, it's going to be 9 pages. And that's
Oh,
going to probably
yes.
scare off a lot of sellers because of the complexity of that. There's a whole bunch of legal mumbo jumbo in there that nobody ever really reads. But you're simplifying it to 1 page, and it's really not much of a burden for someone to just look at 1 page. Everyone can read 1 page, hopefully, or at least grasp what's going on within that, and then send it back to you. So I think removing that friction point probably really helps getting a really good response rate. Frankly, it also shows you're pretty serious. Like, you're ready
That's
to.
what I think. Yeah, that's my, goal in this. I mean, I know there's other approaches. There's neutral letters that a lot of investors use, which are basically, hey, I want to buy your land, give me a call. More of a, a generic approach. So they get more leads that way, but then they get a lot of people that are unreasonable and are looking to get retail or retail plus. And so you have to kind of sift through all those. And in this situation, it's more of, you know, we're not going to be the option where you're going to get top dollar. I mean, people, they know that, but we're going to be the easy option. We're going to pay cash. We're going to close quickly as soon as the title company can get the paperwork done. We're going to close. So that's what we can offer. I kind of use the analogy that, if you're going to sell a used car, you could either, get it detailed, get all the stuff done, make it kind of retail ready, and then try to sell it yourself, and you will probably get top dollar. Or you can just drive it down to the dealership, trade in on the new car that you're buying. You're not going to get top dollar, but the convenience of it makes sense. And a lot of people end up going that convenience route just because they don't want to mess with having people show up at their house and go through the whole process. So it's a similar concept that we're able to offer. So, and then these people that are trading in their cars at the dealership, they know that the dealer is probably going to clean it up and detail it and do some minor repairs and then put it out in their lot and resell it, or they'll take it to the auction and try to make a profit on it there. So
yeah, I mean, that's that's extremely interesting. I love how you include the contract inside of the letter, and like you said, people have sent it back or text you or email you. I mean, that's great because, and like you just said, you're casting such a wide net that you don't even need to hit that many people. I mean, like if you're sending out 50,000 pieces of mail every month and 1% comes through, that's 500. Like you don't even need to get 1%. Like you're looking
yep,
at like a tenth of that. Like if you could even close, like, I mean, 50 deals a month would even be insane, right? You
yep,
you did 70 last year and had an amazing year. So you need like 100th or
yeah,
1,000th to actually like open up and accept it, which I think is great. Like you're extremely niching down, and if you cast a wide net and you only need an extremely low percentage of people to go 30 cents on the dollar, like you're going to find some deals.
yep,
So I think that's a super, super cool strategy to use. And especially on something that, a lot of I think investors that are listening to this podcast are into, rental properties, short-term rental properties, like all of this really heavy involvement in it, whether it's renovating or dealing with people, and you have built a very successful business, just basically selling dirt, which I think
yeah.
is awesome.
Yeah, yeah. It's just about the numbers for me with the mail and everything like that. I mean, we get a lot of responses on properties that we actually don't want to move forward with. Sometimes it might be something like we'll look at and it'll be completely landlocked, or it'll be completely swampland, or it'll be swampland that's landlocked. I mean, all these different things. I mean, or on the side of the mountain. But so at this point, we're being really picky. And I know a lot of investors out there that will just buy anything as long as they can get it cheap enough. And that probably works for them. But I'm at the point where those properties that are problem properties, even if they're super cheap, are going to be a pain in the butt on the resale side. So I really only look for buying the quality properties, the type of properties where they kind of check a lot of the boxes. Like they have road frontage, they're just they have trees, they, whatever the area was, whatever's normal for the area. And if someone were to walk on the property and say, "Oh, this is a nice property," those are the ones I like to buy. And I'll even pay a little bit of a premium if it's a nice property, because I know I'll be able to get a premium on the resale side of things. So yeah, I probably could be doing a lot more deals than what I do, but I choose to kind of go in this manner, like allocate my resources to properties that I think are good properties.
So
So
let's talk about your carrying costs a little bit, because you had mentioned you got about $2.3 million in escrow. You got a lot of properties locked up in a contract. You're trying to sell them, but as opposed to the residential real estate side of things, where, for example, if you had vacancy, you got your mortgage payment, you got your taxes, you got your insurance, you got your utilities, you got your turnover costs, you got all that headache and cost associated with physical structures, properties. When you're sitting on these properties, like what are you paying out of pocket, like, for example, on a monthly basis or yearly basis, whatever, before you get these things sold?
nothing. I mean, property taxes are the big thing with land, but I never make the property taxes payments until we sell on the escrow side. So if there's property taxes due, they get paid through escrow. But I don't worry about trying to manage, like, oh, I'm gonna get a 5% penalty if I don't pay these taxes by that date, whatever. It's kind of inconsequential, really. It's more headache than what it's worth. But as far as holding costs and things like that, it's rare to have any. I mean, for the most part, we're turning these properties in 60 days. I've got some ones that we've held longer, and sometimes, a property will be held for a much shorter amount of time. I mean, we actually already closed. We're on January 4th. We closed a few properties this year already. Did about 300,000 so far this year in sales, and one of them I bought for about 60,000, and it ended up netting 156,000. I only held the property for 3 weeks.
Hmm.
We didn't do anything to the property. I mean,
So
I know I own it on paper and everything, but it's just kind of like, I have nothing to do with like the maintenance of it, or it's just there.
just to give our listeners context, it's January 4th, and you've already done $300,000 worth of sales, and
Right.
that's pretty incredible. 2023 is going to be a banger for you. Speaking about
Yeah, I hope
2023,
so.
why don't we talk a little bit about your goals? Like, what are you trying to build here, and what does your business look like a couple years from now?
Yeah. Well, this year, in the near term, I really feel like I can do 10 million in revenue and staying around the same gross profit margin, about 50% gross profit. And I know if I'm able to do that, then my portfolio value is going to kind of expand quite a bit as well. So that kind of just happens kind of naturally in this business. You're always buying, you're always buying good properties, and you're always selling. So once you get it built up where you've got an inventory, then it's just a matter of kind of timing and that, the balance of everything. So I feel like I really can hit those numbers and then expand from there. I'm also really kind of getting into the training side of things as well. So I want to kind of put all the information out there. And that's why I'm, here talking to you guys. I think that a lot of other people could kind of benefit from the same type of business model that I'm doing, and kind of create quite a business for themselves, or quite a I don't know, uh, create a lot of freedom. I think by having that type of revenue coming in, and having a business that kind of churns out that kind of cash. Um, but the other side of things is, as the better I do, the more I have to actually purchase on of the multifamily or rental type properties in order to offset the tax liabilities. So yeah, it's a great problem to have, and so I want to accumulate some really good properties on that side of things as well. So
Yeah, I was just about to ask because, like, you know, with the constant buying and selling, it's just like a flipping business. So if there's nothing to buy or sell for some particular reason, once you stop doing that action, the money stops rolling in. So did you
Yeah.
have any plans to buy some long-term assets, some long-term rental assets to kind of offset that? And it sounds like you do. I was going to ask that. I wrote this down earlier because you said that you did coaching and training for the travel blog industry. If you were going to plan on putting like a course or a coaching mentorship program together for flipping land, and it sounds like you are going to do that. Is that something you plan on having ready this year?
Yeah, already in the works, actually. I just started a free community as well, and we've just launched a podcast ourselves about real estate investing, and we're going to be talking a lot about land flipping. But yeah, so I put together a free community, and the goal is in the free community that I'm going to put together a course that is everything I know about this business model and the way I do things. I mean, there's with any type of investing, there's a lot of different ways to do things. So what I'm planning to do is show exactly what I do, what actually exactly I know works. So anyone can come in and duplicate it. So I'm going to make that whole course free within our community. And then later this year, I'll probably be having an offering, which is kind of a more of a hands-on helping type approach. If someone maybe a mastermind associated with that and things like that. So maybe a higher level help type thing that we'll be offering, but that's kind of later this year probably. But at first I want to just kind of build a community out and kind of put it all out there for free, give all the secrets out for free and then go from there. But yes, I do come from that world with the online training and everything. So I really know how to make that work. And that's definitely, I think that thing that could be a good win-win for us and also for all the students and, creating businesses that could really do well for them.
So other than joining your community, what would you suggest to somebody looking to first get started into the land flipping business? Is there some action you would tell them to take first, and that should be their priority?
Yeah. I mean, basically, first of all, I would kind of, I mean, maybe this is along the same lines, but I'd go to my website, which is turningprofit.com. I do a monthly income report on there. And basically what I do each month is I spell out exactly what happened that month, like the revenue we took in, the gross profit we did, each of the individual deals that we did that month, like what we bought it for, what we sold it for, what the profit was on that deal, how many days we held it, any other information about the deal itself, like, oh, this went well with the property, this didn't go so well with the property, and so on. So I would definitely like look at those and so you could see kind of what's possible and what types of deals there are out there. And then kind of ask yourself, does this type of business kind of resonate with, with who I am and what I could do, what my skill set is. And then if you think it is, then just kind of dive in and try to learn everything you can. I mean, the important thing really is to learn how to evaluate properties, and it's not difficult. I mean, really there's a checklist of things that you go through when you're evaluating a property, and most people are able to pick that up pretty quickly. And the other big thing that I do, obviously when you get a property under contract or something, is to kind of leverage that local agent that we were talking about earlier. And, a good local agent is going to be able to really help you on that process and kind of boost your confidence in a way, like confirming that it is the deal that you think it is, or maybe help you from making a bad investment. So
Exactly. That's that team part that everybody talks
yes,
about,
that's
building your
right.
team. So
Makes
you
all the
got to have
difference.
those boots on the ground, whether it's
Yeah.
your agent or, you know, somebody else. So that's really fantastic. I mean, I think that's great advice. I know I'm definitely going to be checking that out. I like how you put everything out there on your website. That's really cool. I really wanted to get into, what's the motivation behind this? What is really motivating you to kind of do all of this to, expand your business from 3 million to 10 million, to start the course and help people and all of that? Like what's that fire inside? What's driving you?
I mean, I'm always happiest when I've got really something to work towards. Like I'm not, I, I'm the, like, I guess progress to me, like when I'm making progress and when I can work towards something, that's when I'm happiest. So I guess maybe it's self-serving in that way, but um, so I love expanding and I love doing better. I love trying to do better, and obviously, create as much long-term wealth for my family as I can. Teach my kids kind of how to do the same thing. In fact, we've been I've got three girls, 22, 20, and 12. So the older ones, which are still my kids, but they're 22 and 20 at this point, they actually have been starting to dabble in land investing themselves. Last year, they came to me and they're like, "Hey, we might be interested in doing some of these too." And I was like, "Okay, well, great. I'll teach you guys how to do it, and we'll go from there." So they had a corporation that they started. They were going to do another kind of little business project together that didn't never really took off or do anything. So they had that entity already set up, and they had a little bit of money that they had saved. So they each pitched in $4,000 and they put it in the account. So they started with 8,000 together, and then I had, a couple of smaller deals that I was like, well, if you guys want it, you guys can buy it, and I'll kind of talk you through the whole process and everything. So, uh, a long story short, they over the past like year and a half, and they took a hiatus from this for a while. They actually turned their 8,000 into 82,000. So for me, so they 10 times their money in like a year and a half, and most of it, and that's about 5 deals. So what they did is they kept on just kind of um, rolling
Doubling,
the
doubling,
investments.
doubling.
Yeah. Yeah. And the interesting thing, well, they just actually got a wire transfer today for $44,000. So, and just starting the year here. So it's pretty exciting. So they bought the property that they sold today. I think they bought it for 20,000, 21,000, something like that. And they got 44,000 back after commissions and closing costs and all that kind of stuff. So, so they're very excited about it. Now they're kind of doing the, um, to this point, I've just been kind of giving them sort of extra deals that maybe smaller ones and things. And they're going to start sending out their own mail under their own company name and things like
Right.
that.
Well, that's the big part of it is the marketing piece.
Yeah.
Great to have the capital, and I think it's amazing that you're already getting your daughters involved with this. I mean, that's really cool. Do you think they're gonna make a career of this and stick with it long term, or is this kind of like a stepping stone learning engagement for them before they go into another thing?
Well, I hope they do. I mean, we come from, my wife and I, we've always been very entrepreneurial. We're less about pushing them to get some sort of formalized education and going to work in standard 9 to 5. Although that might be great for some people, it's not I think there are other ways basically these days where you can have kind of a more fulfilling life, more time, more free time to do what you want to do. And it takes some organizing to set up a business and to kind of do some things like that maybe are working on the weekends sometimes when you don't want to, things like that. But I do hope that they stick with it, and maybe they won't stick with land investing forever, but maybe they can leverage that into some other business opportunity that they want to pursue down the road that's maybe 100% in their wheelhouse or something they really want to do themselves. But I mean, I know that if I would have had, that kind of head start when I was 20 or 22 years old, to have, those kinds of funds built up at that point, it would have been, a game changer, especially since they're living at home and they don't have any expenses aside from, you know, whatever they want to spend their money on, but which is
Right.
not much.
And I'm kind of curious, and I know a lot of our listeners have young children. I myself have one boy, 6 months old, and I'm always thinking through these things like, how do I develop a mindset of entrepreneurial pursuits and things like that? So, like, what kind of things have you done with your daughters to kind of foster an environment for them to where they think they can feel comfortable being an entrepreneur and maybe not necessarily taking the traditional education path?
I think for us, it was probably pretty easy just because they saw my wife and I doing what we do and always had businesses and things going on. Like we've never, like I was thinking the other day, the last time I worked as an employee at a job was in 1999, I think. So I've never really had like a job working for someone else. So we were always kind of our own bosses. So I think them seeing that and seeing everything we do as business owners, and struggles and different businesses, and it's not always a rosy picture when you're trying to figure things out as kind of like a young entrepreneur. But we've, over time, I think we've really figured out a lot of things. And just them growing up in that environment, I mean, it would probably be a little strange for them to actually go out and work a 9 to 5. That would be a little more odd from their perspective, I think, just because it's not what they know.
Well, it sounds
Yeah,
like
and I
you're
mean,
leading by example and taking action. I mean, that's, that kids are very impressionable.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess that's the thing. I just try to lead, but do what we're doing. I guess that kind of thing.
exactly. I think that is I kind of wish that a lot more people did it that way. I think the entrepreneurial spirit is huge in the backbone of the country. And if people realized, like you said, that they could actually be successful of it and have more time freedom to actually do the things that they want to do during the day instead of the things they have to do, I think we'd have a lot more happy and smiling people walking around on this lovely planet than everybody thinking that they have to, do the 9 to 5 thing, which is the reason why everyone is listening to this podcast about financial freedom and thinking about ways for you to quit your 9 to 5. So, with that being said, let's talk about some of the obstacles that you see yourself facing with your business over the next, year or two. I mean, are people financing this land? Are all your deals done in cash? Are they from builders? Do you see anything with the economy affecting you? Like, kind of break that down for us a little bit on the obstacles that you see yourself facing to get to that 10 million.
Yeah, that's a really good question. Obviously, there's a lot of chatter out there about the real estate market getting depressed and maybe going into recession or maybe collapsing or anything like that. I mean, anything is possible. And obviously, the real estate market has pulled back since the interest rates have gone up, and especially in some areas, the demand quite isn't quite what it was. Land, in my opinion, has been a little different. Our demand has actually stayed pretty consistent. Most of the property buyers out there are cash. Sometimes we get people doing a HELOC on their personal residence to get it cash to purchase a property. Sometimes people are getting land loans. Those haven't dried up or anything like that. But for the most part, it's cash. And I guess it's possible that cash could start drying up because who knows what the source of that is. It's whether it comes from crypto or it came from selling another property or something like that. I'm sure that type of thing may slow down as the economy, if the economy, continues to struggle, or the real estate market continues to struggle. But what I like about this business model is that it's short-term holds. So if we notice our hold times getting more, or we're noticing a problem reselling these properties, then we just adapt accordingly. We just have to buy cheaper. And one thing I always think back to is when the worst market crash of all time, which was in the 2007 to 2009 area, especially in Southern California here. I mean, prices like fell off a cliff like overnight. Like it seemed like some areas were like 50% of what they were, and even less than that in some areas. But even at that time period, I would list these bank-owned properties, and the banks, they would just list things for whatever the current market value, was, not what was owed on the property previously or anything. And it was just crazy. Like there was a tremendous amount of activity. Like I would get 30 offers on a property. I mean, so it's not like there was no activity in that market, which is the worst housing market collapse we've ever had. It was just simply a reset of the prices. So when I look at that, I think, okay, well, if we do start noticing a bigger downtrend, we buy cheaper and we buy good properties, they'll still sell. They will. And we're able to resell them at a price that's less than what the current market value is. So that's the way I look at it.
Well,
And
that's
plus
true. I was going to say, I guess you don't have the premium risk of having anything built on the property. There's no building there. So
yep.
a lot of that risk, I'm sure, can be eliminated. You mentioned the short-term hold as being a positive aspect of the business that you're in. Is there anything that, is kind of a downside to being in the land flipping business that maybe to somebody who gets into the business to, discovers that thorn later on?
Well, one of the challenges, one of the reasons I've been able to grow so quickly is because I had some startup capital that we could use ourselves to get the business rolling. So it's not like house flipping. Like there's no hard money lenders out there that will actually fund the whole deal for you. So if you don't have the actual capital to purchase the properties, you could still do the deals, but you're doing it with deal partners and you're basically splitting the deal. So I guess that would be that would be one major roadblock. Like the financing isn't out there like it is for buying homes or flipping homes. So, but there are plenty of deal partners out there that will happily partner on these deals with you, if it is an actual deal. So that's one thing. The other thing is, I mean, there are some logistics to set up, and as you're starting, you might find yourself doing all of these roles until you can kind of get to the point where you can bring on certain team members. So, uh, at least at the beginning, unless you hire someone to do it, you got to start talking to these property owners when they call up and they're interested in selling. So you got to have a conversation with them and be willing to do that, or email them or text them and kind of do that type of thing. Takes a little bit of time to get up to speed on, if you're not really familiar with real estate, how transactions work and everything, to kind of figure out that whole process. Um, but aside from that, I mean, I think it's a pretty straightforward business. I mean, you have to invest marketing dollars too before you'll actually get that return, and sometimes that takes, it could take months to see a return on that investment. I think I see a lot of investors fail because they're not consistent in their marketing efforts. They're not consistent getting the mail out. They'll send out a huge batch of mail, get busy, work these leads, buy some properties, and then they realize the phone's not ringing anymore. And then by then it's too late, and they've got to, they go through these big peaks and valleys, and they don't ever set a consistent level with their mailing, so they're continually like growing. They're always on this roller coaster. So that's one big thing to watch out for. So one of the things that I make sure is like clockwork. We get out a batch of 25,000 letters first of the month, and the same on the 15th of the month. And that's one constant that we're just always continuing to do. And I don't even think about it anymore too much. And other than this fact that like, we just need I know that that's just money we got to dedicate, and that's a given. Like we can't deviate from that at all.
Yeah, that's been one of my problems as a real estate agent, is consistency. Like I've gone through that same exact thing you described. We're getting super busy, letting off the gas, and then like 2 months later, you're like, where the heck did all the deals go? And
Yeah.
then getting back into it again. So that's like my 2023 goal, being consistent with the marketing. And I think that's the mark of a good business owner and business to begin with. It's not necessarily being the best at anything or having a superior service. It's literally just being consistent with, your marketing efforts and how you treat your customers and the things that you do. Everything else seems to just take care of itself.
Yeah, it's so true. And even, and, if you're like the type of person that's not good with something like that, I tell people all the other investors all the time, I'm like, hey, just hire someone that's their job. Like they do the mail, they put the list together, they do like whatever it is that you struggle with, have someone else do that. Takes that part out of your hands. So
Delegate to elevate. I love
yeah.
it. I love it. Well, that's a perfect segue into the next segment of the show that James and I like to call the Big
Big
Four.
four.
Kick it off, James.
All right, Pete, for this one, I want you to tell us something that feels like a financial independence hack, something that's like a cheat code that propelled your finances forward.
Well, one thing that well, there's a number of things that kind of helped us over time, but having paying attention to your credit report and having access to financing, whether that be, as a second on your home or something like that. Like if you're very in tune with your credit report and how your credit rating looks to lenders, then you can obviously borrow money and then leverage that for other business opportunities. The other thing in this business that a lot of investors don't realize is you can, if you have an IRA or 401k that you can convert to a self-directed one, you can actually use those funds to purchase land. So, and I own a property in my self-directed 401k now that I bought, I bought through my 401k, and then when I sell it, I don't have to pay taxes on it, so I can keep those funds in there and just keep it rolling. So
That's
Oh,
one of the
that's
things I
incredible.
wish I would have done. It was when I quit my corporate job 2 years ago, almost, was I cashed out my 401k, and I really wish that I would have set up a solo 401k and invested that money instead of dumping it all into crypto, which is for another another story. But
live and learn,
yes,
Might
you
as well
live
have
and you
taken it out to
learn.
the bonfire, man, and lit it on fire.
You live and you learn. At least I didn't
Everybody,
lose it
please,
all, but
take notes from our mistakes. That's what this podcast is for. We're not perfect. Nobody's perfect. Everyone makes terrible decisions sometimes. I've made quite a few. Patrick is indicating he's might have made one too. So we're all human.
I've made some too.
exactly. Like, hey, we're all out here to learn. So, all right, that was a good one though. I really that one hits home for me too. Like making sure that you are the top-notch lendable person makes it a lot easier to find money and be able to close on these deals. So that is a great answer. We call this next one resources. So has there been any particular books, podcasts, or people that have kind of inspired your entrepreneur journey, your lifestyle journey? Not necessarily just, your land flip business, but any particular books, podcasts, or people that stick out that you think our listeners could benefit from checking out?
Yeah, if you're into online marketing, which you may or may not be like me, but there's a book out there called $100 Million Offers, and it's a really, really good one. The author is Alex Hermosi. He's got a podcast and a lot of great YouTube channel and things like that, but a lot of great insights, especially if you're into online marketing. Like I said, you may not be, but I found it very valuable. So
That's a good one. And I would venture to say that anyone listening to this podcast has came across one of his videos in the last couple months, if not a year, because he's like all over my
he
feed,
is all
him and
over
his
the place.
wife. Yeah,
Yeah.
they're absolutely killing it. So great answer. James, number three.
All right, Pete. I want you to tell us what 5 years in the future looks like for you. Paint a picture of your life or your business. Are you guys traveling again? Are you doing something else? Like, where is your guys' life and business and personal side of things 5 years from now?
That's a good one. I should think farther in the future than I have been. I mostly find myself thinking 1 year out, a couple years out, maybe, but 5 years. Uh, we want to own a really cool beachfront home here in San Diego, and to get a really cool one, you got to spend 10 to 20 million somewhere in that range. They're not cheap around here. So that's one thing I see. Building the business up to the point where kind of just more on the visionary side of things rather than doing any of the day-to-day things, and having some incredible people working within the business where I can feel kind of secure that things are going well and growing and continuing to grow. So I guess that would be where I'd see myself business wise. I would love for our girls to have their own businesses up and running and kind of doing the same thing and doing great and kind of really um, launching their lives out in a great trajectory.
So I read somewhere that one of your goals was to own a private island. Is that still on
Oh,
the
yes.
on the bucket list?
Yeah, I would love to have a private island.
That
Probably
might
want to
be
buy the
seven
beachfront
years from
home
now.
first. Yeah, that might be 5 to 10 years, somewhere in that range. But I would love that, Caribbean island or something like that. Yeah.
Fantastic.
10 to 20 mil. So you're gonna have to 4 to 5x that revenue at
I
least.
know. I got
But
to really save up. That's
that's all right. Hey, big goals, those
right.
big goals. I love having big goals, and everybody's thinking about their goals this time of the year. which is awesome. So for anyone that has a big goal of, starting a new business or getting into land just like you and wants to reach out, check out your course, get in your community, all of that, where's the best place for people to find you?
Yeah, best place is to go to turningprofit.com, and then you'll see all the income reports on there. Also, you'll see a box right at the top that says sign up to get our access to our first 50 deals, 50 first deals. And that's just put your name and email address in there, and then we'll send you a link to the new community we're building. And also, it's the first 50 deals is a presentation I did, which breaks down the first 50 deals that we did in the land flipping business. So it shows exactly the progression of the deals we bought, what we bought them for, what we sold them for, profit, days we held them for. So as much information as we could provide. And I think the benefit that you'll get from that is kind of seeing what's possible within the business, and if it kind of is something that resonates with you. And like I said, also we've got a link to our community that from there that you can join and then start learning and interacting with other people that are kind of on the similar journey.
Sounds awesome. Well, I'm going to head over there. Speaking of communities, make sure you're following us on Instagram. Make sure you go and leave us a review. Apple, Spotify. Check us out on YouTube. We've got like 200 subscribers. We need to hit 1,000. So go over there, check that out, and we'll catch you next time. Thanks, guys. Peace.
See you guys.
Thank you for listening to the Real FI podcast, where you learn from the investors that have lived the hard lessons for you. To connect with us during your pursuit of financial independence, be sure to join our community by following us on Instagram or emailing us at info@therealfi.com. If this content made you financially, mentally, physically, or spiritually richer, please make sure to leave us a positive review on your preferred content platform. Cheers to kicking the 9 to 5.